All right, guys. Change of plans. I was putting appointments in my calendar yesterday, and I was looking because I was talking to my dad, and he was talking about an appointment he had coming up, and I thought it was today. And I looked again today and realized, oh no, it's not today. It's next week on Monday. So I was mistaken as to the timing of the appointment. So I put it on the community tab. I'm actually going to be able to do the final Daniel video today. Now, with that being said, keep in mind, this is the final video in the book of Daniel that I'm going to do for this. But we will be coming back to revisit several of these chapters, most notably Daniel 8 and Daniel 11, because I think there's some more there that we need to look at. And with what's happening now on the world stage, what's unfolding is quite important, and there are several of these events that seem to be leading us specifically, in my opinion, to these two chapters. Now, Daniel 12 might also be one of those. We'll see, but I think we're going to be coming back to revisit this Daniel series, and it'll be subsequent videos elaborating on some of that. Again, let me reiterate the point I made at the very beginning of this series. This is not going to be an exhaustive study. I'm only going to cover what stands out, what the Lord leads us to stand out, what jumps out. But we will come back and we will revisit some of these things as the Lord leads us to do so. And one other thing I want to add before we get into this is that there's a lot of alien talk right now. And I want to make sure I caution everybody. Be careful what you believe. Be careful who you listen to. I don't talk about it much because we already know what they are. They're not aliens from another planet. They're demons. I want to keep everyone to keep in mind, demons cannot die. They are eternal beings. For somebody to show a alien body would mean it's not a demon. Otherwise, where's the body come from? These are eternal beings. These are spiritual beings. So if you see anybody showing anything, and most notably several have recently, about alien bodies, you better do a lot of research on that. In fact, the most recent one that supposedly Mexico, I use air quotes here, has shown, go online and look at the photos of them. Those things are fake. 100% fake. Those are not alien bodies. They're fake. 100%. It doesn't make any sense. Why people are so hyper-focused on this. We already know what's going to happen. We already have the information. So instead of focusing on those key elements, which only tell us the time we're in, let us focus on the truth of the Word of God, because that is the only truth we need. This other stuff, it's just distractions. Don't get distracted, guys. Don't get distracted. I actually had to unsubscribe from somebody today that I thought was on the right take there, but it has been kind of going off the rails this last year, and so I'm not subscribed to him anymore. I don't think we should be focusing on things that don't pertain to what we're talking about here, but it's real easy to get off track. When we get out of the scriptures, it's real easy to get off track. So, like I said, pay very close attention to who you're listening to, what you're listening to, and what you're believing. Do your research. I Googled it and looked at the images, and it's like, these things are fake. These things are fake. And they said, well, they're 1,000 years old. Okay, no bodies last 1,000 years. No physical form will last 1,000 years unless it is mummified. The particular video in question, the person said these weren't mummies. Okay, then how did the body last 1,000 years? And we know aliens are demons. They have no body. So why is there a body? It's just questions that need to be answered. And right now, people aren't answering them. So let's focus on what we can discern properly, and what the most important thing is, the Word of God. Let's get into Daniel 12. This will be the final installment in this, except for the videos where we come back and revisit this. The time of the end, Daniel 12:1. At that time Michael shall stand up, the great prince who stands watch over the sons of your people. And there shall be a time of trouble, such as never was since there was a nation, even to that time. And at that time your people shall be delivered, everyone who is found written in the book. The book what? The book of life. Not everybody's name is written in the book of life. Otherwise, why would there need to be one to identify who's who? If everyone's name is written, there's no need for a book of life. It's a pretty easy concept. So, when he says at that time, that is a continuation of a previous statement. So we have to go back to Daniel 11 and go all the way to the bottom. Here's how you read your context. We're going to read 5 verses from the bottom of this chapter. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So, Daniel 11:41. He shall also enter the glorious land, that would be Israel, and he is the Antichrist, and many countries shall be overthrown, but these shall escape from his hand. Edom, Moab, and the prominent people of Ammon. Now, if you remember from the other prophet series that I've done through the old prophets, they talk about these nations and how the Lord is going to pay specific attention to these nations. In fact, he goes into Edom first when he returns at the end of the tribulation and comes back soaked in blood. He wipes out everybody there. Verse 42, he shall stretch out his hand against the countries, and the land of Egypt shall not escape. He shall have power over the treasures of gold and silver, and over all precious things in Egypt. Also, the Libyans and Ethiopians shall follow at his heels. But news from the east and the north shall trouble him. Therefore, he shall go out with great fury to destroy and annihilate many. East? What's east of there? China. North? What's north of there? What's north of Israel? Iran? Turkey? Syria? And, verse 45, he shall plant the tents of his palace between the seas and the glorious holy mountain. Yet he shall come to his end, and no one will help him. Now we jump right to Daniel 12. At that time Michael shall stand up, the great prince who stands watch over the sons of your people, and there shall be a time of trouble, such as never was since there was a nation, even to that time. And at that time your people shall be delivered, everyone who is found written in the book. This would be the midway point of the tribulation. This also is going to take place all the way up to the very end. Look at what it says in verse 2. Very interesting. And many of those who sleep in the dust of the earth shall awake, some to everlasting life, some to shame and everlasting contempt. Interesting statement there. Very interesting statement. Is this a resurrection? Yeah, of course it is. See, there's not just one resurrection, there's multiple. Verse 3, those who are wise shall shine like the brightness of the firmament, and those who turn many to righteousness like the stars forever and ever. So this is end time stuff. All this here is end time stuff. All this actually probably should have went into Daniel 12. But this is end times. This is end of the tribulation. This is all these events unfolding all the way out to the very end, going into the millennial reign. Now he changes gears here. Verse 4. But you, Daniel, shut up the words and seal the book until the time of the end. Seal the book. What book? This whole entire book. The chapters and chapter divisions and verse divisions were added by man later on. Much of it was done on horseback. Actually, they killed him for doing it. The man that translated this Bible first time into English, I forget his name. I talked about it a while back. He was told not to by the Vatican. He was told not to by Britain. So he escaped to another country, took all the scrolls and stuff with him, and did it anyway. Sometimes on horseback. Sometimes in caves. When he got it done, they caught him. They burned him, they hung him, they drowned him, and then they strapped explosives to his chest and blew his body apart. I mean, they did everything they could to kill this guy. Of course, he was already dead the first time they did it, but yeah, they wanted to prove a point. A lot of people died over the last 2,000 years to get us this book. So this book is very important. When we talk about what's here in verse 4, but you, Daniel, shut up the words and seal the book. What book? This entire book that he wrote. Now, there's a greater significance to this in that it would be the whole book, because most of this Bible has not been understood very well until recent times. until it's really started to, people started to pay attention and go, you know what, the Catholic Church is lying. These people are lying. These leaders are lying. They're trying to hide stuff from us. And it's only then that this entire book has shut up. But for now, we're going to focus on the book of Daniel. Seal up the book until the time of the end. This whole Bible, a lot of people say, well, Daniel 8 and this and that and all these parts, that happened 2,500 years ago. No, it didn't. This entire book was sealed until the time of the end because people didn't understand it until now. It's only until the last about 60 years that people really started to grasp Daniel. The last 20 has been a real eye-opener for people. Do your research, you'll see what I'm talking about. It's really started to open up. I think the next couple of years, it's really going to start opening up. People are really going to start, wow, wait a minute. We didn't see this before. Yeah, go back to the Daniel 11 video. There's a lot of stuff in there that relates directly to Daniel 8. Seal the book until the time of the end. Many, and I mentioned this morning, shall run to and fro, and knowledge shall increase. That's now. 2,000 years ago, how did people travel? They didn't run to and fro. How did they travel? Ship, horseback, wagon, or walking. 1,000 years ago. Or 1,500 years ago, it was the same thing. 1,000 years ago, it was the same thing. 500 years ago, it was the same thing. 500 years ago, people traveled the same way. It's only been in about the last 250 years. You can narrow it down even more and go to like the last 175 that we started to travel the way we have. That's when flight came in and we could travel around the world. That's when ships got more powerful. Steam power was reinvented. The Egyptians already knew about that. Steam power was reinvented. Then nuclear, then diesel, internal combustion. Then we all started traveling to and fro. We go all over the place. This is our time. This is a book for our time, not back then. This is a book for now. Every bit of this book gives us messages for now, especially the prophecies. And knowledge shall increase. Verse 5, then I, Daniel, looked, and there stood two others, one on this riverbank, and the other on that riverbank. So he's back on the banks of the Ulal River in Iran at the Citadel, which is still there, by the way. It's actually quite a big place. Verse 6, and one said to the man clothed in linen. And notice it's two people here, and they're both angelic entities. But one is in linen, and the other was just in white raiment. We read that back in the beginning when he first started having these prophecies. In fact, I think it was Daniel 8 when it was first really closely mentioned. You know who the one in the linen is? Anytime you see a man clothed in linen and is speaking of somebody, of spiritual stature, that's Jesus Christ. He's all over the Old Testament, all over. Who was above the waters of the river. How long shall the fulfillment of these wonders be? Now, it's very interesting to keep in mind. Remember what we found out when we were reading Zechariah? Ezekiel or Zechariah, when it talked about this wall is going to be the stature or the height of a man, that is, of an angel. And then we look at how many cubits it was, and it gives you the indicator that angels are like 265 feet tall. I can't get away from that. It's right there in the scriptures. But how interesting, if you think about that and think about these guys here. One of these guys was Gabriel that was standing here with him. Remember Daniel 8? Jesus was telling Gabriel, make him understand. And now we have Michael standing up. And they're standing. Oh, who was it in Daniel 8? Was it Jesus? I think was standing on both sides of the river at the same time. They were tall. So that kind of leads a little credence to that. But this stands out. You start to think about this. All these details we've been discovering all start to stand out here. So there stood two others, one on this riverbank, the other on the other, one clothed with linen, Jesus, who was above the waters of the river. How long? This is him speaking. Oh, he said to the man clothed with linen. He was asking Jesus, how long shall the fulfillment of these wonders be? Then I heard the man clothed in linen who was above the waters of the river. Hold on a second. Let me go back here. Let me remind everybody what we covered. So they're standing by the river, ram, two horns. Okay. So in Daniel 8, then it happened, verse 15, when I, Daniel, had seen the vision and was seeking the meaning, that suddenly there stood before me one having the appearance of a man. That's a very interesting statement he made. It was the appearance of a man. And I heard a man's voice between the banks of the Ulai who called and said, Gabriel, make this man understand the vision. That was Gabriel that was there, but this other person, standing between the banks of the Ulai, he was standing on the water. Because what's between the banks of the Ulai River? There's nothing but water there. He's standing on the water. Let's see, was that it? I think that was it for that one, yeah. So he's looking at these guys. Now, he probably didn't know who one of them was. It doesn't indicate that, but who knows? Powerful stuff. Connections we can't ignore. So how long shall a fulfillment be? Let's see what Jesus has to say. Verse 7. Then I heard the man clothed in linen who was above the waters of the river. He wasn't standing on one bank or the other. He was standing on the water. Floating above it, if you want to put it that way. But he was right there on top of the water. He was above the water. He was standing there on the water. What did Jesus do? Was he reminding people of the book of Daniel whenever he did it in the New Testament? Walking on water? I wonder if any of them caught it. When he held up his right hand and his left hand to heaven, and swore by him who lives forever, God, that it shall be for a time, times, and half a time, and when the power of the holy people has been completely shattered, all these things shall be finished. 3.5 years. So Daniel 12 is giving us the second half of the tribulation and what is going to unfold. Go back to verse 1 through 3. Or 1, verse 1. So it's telling you what time this is all going to unfold. That lasts 3.5 years. Time, times, and half a time. That's 3.5 years. A time is a year. Times is 2 years. And half a time is half a year. That's the second half of the tribulation. So you can go back to Daniel 11 and dig more into that too. Now that actually covers, I think, the whole one. But it covers half also. Plus, Daniel 8 also digs into that time frame as well. Especially the halfway time frame. In not specific details, but more universal detail, but these are specific, especially chapter 11. So when the Jews are done, they're donezo, they're finished. That's it. That's when it's all going to be done. That's when it's all going to be done. Finished. That's it. Verse 8. Although I heard, I did not understand. Of course he didn't. He didn't know what's going to happen in the future. Then I said, my Lord, what shall be the end of these things? Who asked that question in the New Testament? Lord, what shall be the sign of the end? You see repeating history here? Yeah. What shall be the end of these things? What is this going to be? It has nothing to do with Daniel. He's just been given the prophecy. It's for us. This book was written for us, not for them. Verse 9, and he said, go your way, Daniel, for the words are closed up and sealed till the time of the end. I think the reason why most people don't grasp the book of Daniel and have only found tidbits of information and don't see possibly even what I'm seeing in here. I'm not saying I'm right, but I would have thought somebody would have seen this besides me. Yet nobody even talks about it. They don't even poo-poo on it. They don't even, persuade people to not think that that's what that is. They don't talk about it at all. Maybe it's because it hasn't reached the time yet. I think we're just now getting into that time when the book of Daniel is really going to wake up, because the book of Daniel gives you some very interesting details about this time frame. Details I don't think anybody pays attention to. That's just me, because I don't hear anybody or see anybody that has talked about this in great detail. It may not be that the Lord has opened this up all the way yet, and maybe he's just now doing that. I don't know. I'm glad he is, because there's a lot here. A lot. That you can almost go play by play what the whole 7-year tribulation is going to be like, going by the book of Revelation and going by the details given in the book of Daniel. Just saying. Just saying. Verse 10. Many shall be purified, made white and refined, but the wicked shall do wickedly, and none of the wicked shall understand, but the wise shall understand. The wicked Have no clue what this book says. Oh, that's all fairy tales. That's all stuff that happened in the past. That all happened 2,500 years ago. Millennialists. So what does verse 10 say about that? Because they don't understand. This is clearly for the end times. It literally says it in the chapter. The beginning of the chapter, time of the end. Daniel 8, same thing, time of the end. Well, the end hasn't happened yet. Oh, all that stuff happened over 2,000 years ago. Oh, so the millennial reign was 2,000 years old, not 1,000. Is that what you're saying? No, it's only 1,000. Okay, then why do we have an extra 1,000 years here? Nothing new. Well, because all that stuff was done away with. Okay, where's New Jerusalem? It's a city 1,500 miles square. Where is it? I don't see it. It's 1,500 miles across, 1,500 miles wide, and 1,500 miles tall. We covered it in the prophets. Where's that city? If the 1,000-year millennial reign is over, all that stuff already happened. Where's the holy city? Because nobody on earth can see it. That's a problem. Their theology doesn't match what the Bible says. See, they don't want those things to be true, because if these things are true, that means they're condemned, and they hate that. Instead of just believing, instead of just going to the Lord for salvation and getting their sins paid for, getting themselves absolved of these things, and believing what the book says, they want to change it to make themselves justified. Interesting stuff. They want to talk all this smack, and none of them know what they're talking about. They love to come tell me. When one of them stumbles across my videos, they love to come tell me, you need to go do some more study. And I'm like, really? I tell them, well, I think it's you that needs to go do more study, because obviously you haven't watched anything else that I've covered. I have over 4,100 videos now. Notice that today. And I've covered this book. And we're going to continue to cover more, but I've covered it in the past. I got so many videos, it's unbelievable. I mean, back in 2019, there was times I was doing 10 to 12 videos a day. There's a lot to cover here, and we can't get it all down. Hello? Text message. Who is this? Hold on a second, guys. But the wise shall understand. Now, I'm not going to sit here and profess that I'm wise and say that I know what this stuff means. I don't. But I can't help but see these things. And they stand out. And the bulk of Scripture proves them. So, all those people who have written the book of Daniel often say we've already figured it out. No, I'm 100% wrong. There's way more here that we need to discover. Whoa. Me and my wife are sending cute texts back and forth to each other. Okay, now we're going to get into something interesting. Now, I've covered this in the past. I think it was last year. I think it was last year I covered this. Daniel 11 and Daniel 12 give a very interesting timeline. Daniel 11 says, I'm going to cover both of them here. And from the time of that, the daily sacrifice is taken away, and the abomination of desolation is set up. There shall be 1,290 days. That equates out to 6 years and 3 months. There's a missing 9 months of the tribulation there. Now, I believe in Daniel 8, I talked about this because it paints a very interesting picture of how some of these events are going to unfold, and it gives an interesting timestamp. Now, the next verse adds something else to it. Blessed is he who waits and comes to the 1,335 days. So let's go run over here to Google real quick. 1,335 days in years. That's 3.6 years. So 3.5 will be 3.5. It's an extra few days. Or, sorry, it's an extra month and a few days. It's like 35 days or something like that. Over the 3.5 years. So we're going to go back to the other verse here in a minute, but picture this. The tribulation unfolds. We get to the very end of the tribulation. Bam. 3.5 years after the Antichrist declared himself God, the abomination of desolation is not going to be him slaughtering a pig in the temple. He's going to be him declaring himself God. You declaring yourself God is an abomination that leads to desolation. This is why the Mormons all talking about how they're going to be little gods. That's abomination of desolation. You cannot be God. You cannot declare yourself God. That's dumb. Doesn't make any sense. A bunch of the charismatics are doing this nonsense. That's the abomination of desolation. Declaring yourself God when we already have one. No one is God but God. So if we're following a linear timeline and we come up to the end, you've got an extra like 35 days. Since that's 3.65, that's an extra 30 days plus maybe a few. So say an extra 35. So you got an extra month on the end after the 7-year tribulation. I wonder what that month is for. Those who survive and all the recovery coming together and the Lord lifting things up and setting up his thing and everything. So this is a very interesting little tidbit of information here. Very interesting little block of time. At the end of the tribulation, it should be 3.5, but he says, blessed are those that wait till 1335. Let's go back. Blessed is he who waits and comes to the 1,335 days. So it seems to me like that's the little bit of extra time after. Now, some people have taken this to say it's talking about the rapture. Okay, well then you'd have to flip it upside down and go backwards and go back to the beginning, which would mean 30 days prior to the tribulation. I don't think that's what the case is. I think this is forward because he says, blessed is he who waits and comes to. Time moves forward, so it's going to the past of it. So there's an extra bit of time there. So what's the difference between 1,290 days. So the whole, let's see here, the whole tribulation. So let's do 7 years and days. $2,556.75. So let's do, I'm going to use my calculator here. You guys, if you have your calculator on your phone there, you can do the math here with me. So if we do 2,556 minus 1335, you get 1,221 days left. Now, if we take that same calculation and go, what was it? 1335 minus 1290, 45 days. So the first section here, daily sacrifice taken away, abomination desolation set up, there should be 1,290 days. You subtract the 1335 and you get 45 days. There's a month and like 2 weeks. So there's a 45-day block there that's missing. What is that 45 days? And we can establish by verse 12 it's at the end. Is that the time frame where everything's getting rearranged? The Lord is back. He's talking to everybody. Hey, y'all, come out of Petra. Come up here. We're going to do this. Fix that. You guys watch. We'll put this together. We're going to set this up. Let's get y'all established. Here's what we're going to do. It starts talking to people, and everybody starts worshiping and everything. I think, and this is just me spitballing here, but I think that 45 days is setting up for, it's the little mini gap in between the tribulation and the very beginning of the millennial reign. That time where everything is resting, cleaning things up, moving things around. People are getting established. Everybody's getting things explained to them so they're on the same page as to what's happening, because you can't just snap your fingers and do it. It has to play out. That way people understand what's happening. So that 45-day block is missing there. Now let's back up. So that's what I think that's what that is. Now, if we go to the 1,290 days, 1,290 days. Here, let me do it on the computer. Let's do this. 1,290 days. Oops. 1,290 days is 3.5 years. 1,335 is 3.6 years. But the time frame where was the other number at? Let me see here. Trying to remember where I got that one calculation at. Clear this. 1335 plus 1290. 2625. So if we go 2625, 7.1, so we got that little bit of extra, that 45 days extra. Where did I get that 6.3 at? I'm trying to remember. Oh, you know what? I think that was in Daniel 8. Clear that. Where were we at here? Daniel 8. I think it was in Daniel 8 where I found that number. Might have been the book of Revelation. I don't remember where it's at because there was one number given. Oh, maybe it was Daniel 7 actually. Days in the future. Yeah, maybe it was Daniel 7 where that number was given. But it calculated out to 6.3 years. Fourth beast. Where is that number? I'm trying to remember where I saw this at. Because it wasn't the whole 7 years. Because if you do 7 years, it's 2,556. Where was this at? Let me try this. 6.3. 2,301. I'm not crazy. I covered this in a video a couple of times. Not there. Uh-oh. What turned off here? Okay. What happened here? Did my computer unplug? Nope, doesn't look like. Okay. Let me pause for a second. Let me find this. I don't remember where this is. Oh, I can't pause. That's right. I forgot how to pause on this one. Okay. Because there was a number I had found. Some of you guys might remember where it's at. I covered it before. Where it comes out to like. Oh, wait a minute. Oh. You have to excuse me. I have a traumatic brain injury. I struggle with everything. No, it's not that one. Dang it. Can't remember where that was at. Where that number was. Okay, well, I guess we're going to have to skip it. Because there was one that came out to 6.3. I thought it was right here. No, it was like 2,300 days. Might have been in the book of Revelation. I'm going to have to go back and look it up. But there's a section there that gives you like a 9-month gap. And I don't know if it's a 9-month gap prior to the tribulation or a 9-month gap in the beginning of the tribulation on things that are going to unfold. Oh, you know what? Maybe Maybe it's in 6. It was opening the seals. Mountains. I'm trying to find it so I can show you guys all of this stuff that I'm finding here, because there's very, very interesting connections here. I don't want anybody new to the channel to think I'm crazy. Where was that number? I really should start making actual notes on this stuff so I can find it. 4. Thrones. I know it was in Daniel. I'm almost sure it was in Daniel 7. Giving the interpretation here. Ancient of Days. Time times half a time. There's that 3.5 years there. Dominion. Oh, there we go. Came back on. I don't know if you guys could see that on the video or not. My computer goes into sleep mode for a little bit, and then it kicks back on and recharges. It's dim and bright. Dominion. Time times half a time. And the account. Where in the world did I see this number at? Many days in the future. Extra schemes. Male goat. 70 weeks. No, it had to have been down here somewhere. Okay, well, I don't remember where it was at. I had to find it. If I find it, I can put an amendment in the comments or something. But it was a number given. It very well could be in the tribulation, or in the book of Revelation. Maybe more towards the end. I really need to sit down and actually do some notes on this. I don't have a good place to do all this stuff, and a lot of distractions, quite a bunch of distractions. So it's hard to sit down and do this stuff, but we'll get there. I'll touch base on it again later when I figure it out. I'll do some research today. So these numbers he gives are very interesting, because it shows in verse 12 that there's an extra 45 days tacked on, because it's blessed is he who waits and comes to, going forward in time, we can't go backwards, the 1,335 days. Now that 1,335 days is a 45 days attached onto the 1,290 days. Now this 1,290 days is the second half of the tribulation. This is when, and from that time, the daily sacrifice is taken away. And we read in 11, it mentions that he does it in chapter 8, but in chapter 11, it says he's going to go back, because he goes back to his home. Remember, we talked about that, how it seems like he's going, back. If it's America, then he's going back to America. He's going back home. But then he gets news and he takes back off over there. And when he gets there, he's angry. And he takes away the sacrifice. And then he sets up the abomination of desolation, declaring himself God. He does this at the midway point. No more sacrifice for you guys. I know I did my deal, but I'm going to break my deal now. Takes it away, and then he declares himself God. You sacrifice to me now. So this verse 12, the daily sacrifice is taken away from that time. That'll be at the 3.5 year mark of the tribulation. And the abomination of desolation is set up. There shall be 1,290 days. So he does that at the midway point. We got that much time until it all unfolds. Then it's over with. But then he goes on and says, blessed is he who waits, and comes those who survive. And it's a miracle in and of itself if you can survive the tribulation. Blessed is he who waits and comes to the 1,335 days. 45 days after this time frame right here. I think that's when the everything's going to relax. And I could be wrong, but everything's going to relax. Everything's going to settle down, and everybody's going to be called back in. Because remember, there's it talks about it at the end of the book of Revelation, at the end of the tribulation. He calls everybody, four corners of heaven and four corners of the earth. So there's a lot of Jews that are going to be in other countries that are going to be coming back. They're all going to get called back and make a mass exodus back to Jerusalem. So that 45 days may be that time frame. Very interesting little bits of information here. And it's hard to calculate out exactly where this is referring to. Again, as we go on the next year or two, as the days go on from this point on, we'll start to get more of this, and the Lord will show us more. And then we can calculate more closely what this is referring to and make more connections to the other books. Like I said, I'll dig that up, and I'll be doing amendment videos on this. We'll come back and visit it. That's the top stuff. Now, he tells him as his closing statement, but you go your way till the end, for you shall rest. He's going to die. His body's going to die. And will arise to your inheritance at the end of the days. So he's telling Daniel, don't worry about it now, Daniel. We're done. No more we're going to give you. We're not going to make you sick anymore. You're going to live out the rest of your life. And you're going to die. You're going to sleep. And then when you arise, you're going to arise to your inheritance at the end of the days. End of what days? End of these days right here. End of all these days. The end of all these days right here. So when we add these days together, so that is, use my handy little phone calculator here. So that's 1,335 plus 1,290 minus 45. That's 2,580 days. 2,580. That's just like a half a day over 7 years. So when you add this time frame up, that's what you end up with. Now, we know for sure that this isn't referring to the entire tribulation. How interesting it comes up to that. Isn't coming to the entire tribulation. It's only referring to the second half. But it's at the end of these days that this is unfolding, this second half of the tribulation. Oops. Close. There we go. 1,290 days. But if you go to 45 days after 1,290, 1,335, you're going to rise from the dead. You will arise to your inheritance at the end of the days. That's the end of these days talked about. Now, this whole book talks about the entire 7 years, but the big focus is on the second half, because that's when the real bad stuff starts to unfold. If you go into the tribulation and don't leave in the rapture of the church, and you make it to the halfway mark, God help you to survive to the end. I don't know how many are going to survive. Only God knows. He's already seen it. But what an amazing thing. So this second half is the big focus. And the book of Revelation gives us the play-by-play on all the stuff that's going to unfold throughout. And then it gives us that second half. And it really shows how everything is going to get bad in that second half. It's after that second half. It's that 45 days after is when everybody's going to rise. So a lot of stuff is going to happen during that 45 days. So the book of Daniel is giving us a bunch of interesting details here to piece together. And we're going to piece them together. Remember, if you're disappointed in how I've covered this, remember, I'm not a theologian. I haven't gone to seminary. I'm not a pastor, not a prophet. I'm nothing. I'm nothing. I have no formal learning in this. I rely 100% on the Lord to give me the words and to point these things out. If there's something that you think I missed, it's okay. We're going to get back into it because the Lord's going to bring us back to this. I know He is, because there's more here. But keep in mind that a lot of the Bible, a lot of it isn't for some of us. A lot of it we're just not going to understand because it wasn't given to us to understand. This side of heaven, there's a lot of things we're not going to know about this book. That's why the Lord is going to teach us. After the millennial kingdom is established, he's going to make us to sit down and he's going to teach us what else was in this book, what all we missed. It's going to be an amazing time. So yeah, big stuff going on here. But what I love is that you can go 7, 8, 10, 11, and 12 and connect the dots, especially 8, 11, and 12. With 9 being a very interesting one, as 9 gives us, in the last part of it, gives us the 70 weeks. So make sure you guys are doing your own research. Again, this isn't exhaustive because there's a lot here I don't know and understand. What I'm hoping is that the Lord's going to bring it out of either you guys or we're going to end up go back and revisiting this and discovering more. Because there's obviously more here. Right now, I don't have the ability to sit down and open the book of Revelation, open the book of Daniel, and start connecting dots because there's even in that there's details. So right now, there's just too much going on. We're getting ready for the cold weather. I got a lot of maintenance to do on vehicles, but I am going to come back to this. I desire to come back to this to learn more because there's so much more here. So, guys, that was Daniel 12, the best I could do. And all of this is the best I can do. May the Lord give you more understanding than me on this and show you more than he's shown me. That way we can all grow from it. Because if he shows you more, by all means, share it. So we can look a little deeper and see more of what's in here. But, I mean, there's a lot here, guys, and there's a lot we've missed. There's a lot of stuff over the years we've missed, and a lot of people have misunderstood. That's why we have so many false doctrines out there coming out of how the future events are going to unfold. Because it's only been recently that we've had any of the things that got us into this book in the first place. Well, man, get out of here. Basically all starting in 1948. There was a guy, one or two guys I was listening to. They were talking about, when the book of Daniel really started to open up to everybody, and it was right after 1948. When people really started to pay attention and go, whoa, wait a minute. Jesus is talking in the New Testament about this. We need to go back and look at Daniel because Daniel talks about that time. And then people started going, whoa, wait a minute. We're in that final generation. And that's when it all started to take off from there. So we got more study to do. So don't think that this is the end of Daniel. We're going to be coming back to Daniel for sure because I want to learn more about this. There's a lot here, but he's given us the play-by-play. The play-by-play on the events, especially whenever we were going through 11. 11 was cool. It had all kinds of very fine details. I think we'll be coming back to this one too. Here's that. And they shall take away the daily sacrifices and place there the abomination of desolation. So do your own research. See what you can find. And we'll come back. We'll come back and we'll look a little more. We might do another amendment study and we'll compare all these together, those 3 chapters, 8, 11, and 12, and see what we can discover out of that too. So we'll see. So guys, that's it. I'm waiting to see if the Lord gives me anything else or points me in another direction. But this is it. That's Daniel 12. We'll see what else comes out of this. Keep your eyes open. Make sure you're watching who you're listening to, what you're hearing. Don't believe everything. I wouldn't believe anything until you test it first, regardless of what it is or who it comes from. And make sure that it's the truth. And don't put your faith in any man, any pastor, anybody. Put your faith in God. Put your faith in this word, because it is this word that is true. It is this word that will be fulfilled. And because the Lord said it's going to be fulfilled. We have no choice in the matter. So guys, that's all I got. We'll come back to this when the Lord leads us back. And we'll see who we're going to cover next. I think I've done just about all the prophets. But we may go into some other ones. We'll see what the Lord has to say. And we will listen. All right, I love you all. And I thank you guys for watching. And I'll see you in the next video.